So welcome to whatever this is called, currently untitled podcast.
Parentheses, I'll fix it in post.
Parentheses, I'll fix it in post. I am Jaden Bickle.
I'm Kennedy Grant.
I am Af. I'm Peter.
So,
No.
come on over here. So yeah, we have collectively watched some movies. The idea here being, we have watched a couple movies. Now we're going to talk about them. Our idea here, we've come up with 128 movies that the internet tells us we should like. And we're going to watch them all. And we have let Rotten Tomatoes randomly seed these. And we have created a bracket to determine what is the internet's favorite movie per our incredibly objective opinions. So, this week we got our first matchup with Mad Max Fury Road, directed by George Miller, and Indiana Jones and Raiders of the Lost Ark, directed by Steven Spielberg. So, an oldie action movie and a recent action movie. Our lower seed here was Fury Road. So I guess let's get into Fury Road first.
Right.
This was seeded 86, and it made the list per being... There were a lot of things that went into deciding what would and wouldn't be on the list. One of those things taken into consideration was genre, and Fury Road was selected as the greatest action movie. So I guess that's a good starting point.
Is Indiana Jones also considered action movie as far as this?
It is. Indiana Jones, I'll throw this out there now. Indiana Jones was selected because it was pulled from IMDb's top 250 movies of all time, where it was ranked 59. So there were several things that went into this. But yeah, so how do you guys feel about Fury Road as being selected greatest action movie of all time?
I completely agree, but we've been through this.
Oh,
Fury Road is my favorite movie of all time, so we all know where I personally stand with this movie anyway.
Yeah.
I think it's incredible.
Did you first time see it in theaters, or?
I did, yeah. It's really funny. I didn't care to see it because I don't like generally when they remake movies that I think are really great, and I don't think they need a remake, so I was like reluctant to go watch it. And then I saw a review somebody had posted where this guy was complaining that this movie's so feminist it's basically going to ruin manhood, and he would literally like lose his genitalia just by watching it. And I was like, well, I gotta go watch this movie if that's what's happening. And so I went in there with very little expectations. The only thing I knew about it was that it made men mad, and I really liked that.
It's a good starting point.
Yeah.
Did you watch this in theaters, Af, or?
Oh, dude, probably. No, it was on DVD at that point, I think, when I watched it. I'm also basing my vote for Fury Road just because of the portrayal of redemption and technically an underdog story, but it's not very prevalent in Fury Road for Mad Max.
Yeah.
But I see some elements there, and I do enjoy that sort of story more compared to Indiana Jones and Raiders of the Lost Ark.
That's fair. We can get into some more of like what movie versus movie a little bit later, but Peter, what's your experience with Fury Road?
I think it came out in 2015, right?
That sounds right, yeah.
I don't remember all the details, but I remember how I felt. And I remember that I didn't want to leave the movie theater halfway through, like I do with most movies, just for an anxiety break. Because I get really anxious in climate-controlled environments for too long. And Fury Road, I was on the edge of my seat the entire time. I was like, wow. It felt really manic. Felt like a cocaine rush. No, it was... I remember it being like... I remember saying, this is one of the greatest action movies of all time. But I don't think I've seen it since then.
Okay. Yeah, I think some interesting things with like the action movie, kind of getting into some of the behind the scenes, is the script for this was far more of a comic than a traditional screenplay. It was very like action first, story second. I think George Miller at some point said his goal with this movie was to see if he could create a 2-hour-long car chase and make it cohesive.
I think he's successful.
Yeah.
I think, well, there's been twice now that I've watched Fury Road with the volume completely off, and the story is still completely cohesive with no dialogue at all, which I think is just absolutely stunning from a filmmaker perspective. This whole story unfolds just visually.
Yeah, I think that's also a testament to names. Margaret Sixel. So you also talked about the feminist side of this. I think George Miller has stated that he could not have made this movie without Margaret Sixel. She was the editor for this movie. She is also George Miller's wife. She crushed it as far as editing. I can't, like, looking into some of the behind the scenes, they came back from the desert with all this footage. George Miller and Margaret just sat in a room and pieced it together bit by bit based on the storyboards that they had. And she ended up winning an Oscar for it.
Right,
which
well deserved.
Absolutely well deserved. And I think it's interesting that George Miller had those feminist ideas very much on the front of his mind, and that's why he was so eager to have Margaret edit this for him. So yeah, some things that I think is really interesting, like on the note also of watching it with no volume. Even if you watch it with volume, something that really stands out of this movie is the story of Max's boot, which is never once spoken of. They never say a word about his boot, but throughout this course of the movie, you see it fall off. It's like center framed. It falls off his foot. He tries on Nux's boot, gives up, ends up stealing someone else's boot, and then later, no, he does steal Nux's boot because then later he steals a different boot to give to Nux. And not a word is ever said about the boot. So I think that whole sequence is kind of an incredible testament to the visual storytelling on display here.
Something that I really, really appreciate along those same lines too is that at no point in time is there huge amounts of exposition or information dumping at all. And it leaves a lot of unanswered questions, but not in an obnoxious way, in a sort of fill in the blanks in your own brain kind of way. So the imagination is still engaged the entire time.
Yeah, exposition is delivered so quickly in this movie. Like, there's a one-off line early in the movie where the blood doctor guy, I don't remember, says, "Be careful with that one. That's a universal donor." And that comes back later because then he gives blood to Furiosa at the end of the movie. It's a one-off line.
He gets the
tattoo,
tattoo, the universal blood tattoo, and like, why do they need donors? Why do they need so much blood all the time? It's never explained.
Because Furiosa's gonna need it at the end of the movie.
Like, it just feels like it makes sense. Everything that goes on in the movie fits the theme of the world that they're in. It makes sense. That's the only way I can say about it.
Yeah, absolutely. It exists in its own... It makes sense in its own realm, which is really, really cool, and I think really part of why it's so compelling.
The coherency is incredible. And listening to people talk about this, like, filming of it, a lot of it was like, these shots don't make sense. What is George Miller thinking? Why do we just have these random bits of shots all over the place? And then everyone said when they saw it all come together, like, oh, it makes sense now. I get what George Miller had going on in his head.
I think without knowing that the editor was a woman, I could probably guess, because at no point in time was any of the women on screen for a titillating reason, even when they were scantily clad, or, like, the intent behind these women who are escaping is very, very clear, but it's never overtly sexualized, and that's really, really nice and really refreshing. Plus, Charlize Theron, one of the most beautiful women on the entire planet, gets to be this, like, full range of just absolutely f***ing mad. Yeah. And it's incredible to watch.
And you even get a lot of complexity between the brides, because there's one that tries to run away. They scream at her, "We are not things." And she's, "I don't want to hear that anymore," which pays off later as well, because she's the first one that goes back over, and it has that moment of like, oh no, she's still caught on going back to him because that's her comfort. And then it turns out she's actually helping them out. Yeah, you get a lot of complexity amongst the female characters, which I think was a complaint I saw about this movie, but I think a silly complaint is this isn't a Mad Max movie. It's a bad other people. Which I also love that Max just kind of comes in, stumbles into this world, is like, oh, what's going on here? I guess I'll help because I'm just trying to survive for the time being, and gets caught up in all this, and then ultimately fucks off at the end of the movie. But it is far more focused, I think, on Furiosa, which is a lot of Mad Max movies. Max is not the main protagonist, I think,
Right.
of really any
He's
of them
just-
besides the first
He's
one.
just there and he's ready to party.
Yeah.
And I can respect that about him.
He's just trying to get some food and some gasoline.
Yeah.
Sick
His
of eating.
family's dead. He's just here for the vibes.
Yeah. Killed his wife and son. Son? I think it's a son. And they're just going from there.
Oh my goodness.
We got our guest star, Sophie, the dog, going off in the background.
She has asthma.
She does. I think another person I kind of want to get on, besides females, my personal favorite character is Nux. I find Nux incredibly fascinating, just like his derealization with this world and this religion that he's bought into so thoroughly, and just his deconstruction of being like, oh, no, maybe this actually wasn't cool and I should help these women out.
Right, but it's believable also the entire time,
Mm-hmm.
which is incredible storytelling without a lot of dialogue. And it's so interesting to watch this kid who lived his entire life like this be like, oh, maybe this isn't right. But he was a war boy. He was born and bred to die for the causes that his betters set up for him.
Yeah. Because a very critical turning point for him is when he thinks he's awaited in Valhalla and he mucks it up. And then it's like,
Oh, right.
oh,
Like,
no.
what does that mean for me? You're
Like, I can't grab the sun on my way to Valhalla anymore.
you're just like, do you know, right after this movie, there's these spray paints for cake decorating, particularly silver ones, and they sold out of them because they're edible. They sold out of them so quickly, and I just assume it's just because of a bunch of teenagers going around spraying that in their mouth and going, oh, witness me! And that just makes me so happy.
I will absolutely have witnessed me be my last words on earth.
As you spray cake decorating paint into your mouth.
Allegedly, that stuff tastes terrible, too.
Oh, it can't be good just because it's edible.
Yeah, just because that dirt, it tastes terrible. Yeah.
But the thing about Nux, I still think he believes in Valhalla, just not in Immortan Joe's version, like more of a righteous cause sort of deal at the very end.
Right? And you can kind of see that because the passion never wanes. You know, he never loses his desire to help, his desire to do what he believes is right. It just shifts.
Yeah, and his last words are still, witness me, before he cranks that thing, the tanker over. But I think it is an interesting shift, because instead of, I want the most witnesses possible, I want Immortan Joe to see me, it's the redhead. That he slowly starts developing a relationship with. Let me see if I can't pull up her name. I'm terrible with names. Riley? I feel like not a lot of normal names in here, so I don't know if Riley's right, but Google AI says Riley.
We should definitely trust.
And Mad Max
AI.
and Mad Max Wiki also says Riley.
Okay. That is more trustworthy, I
Yeah,
think.
Mad Max Wiki says Riley. Definitely is an interesting shift in seeing their relationship develop and how he still holds those beliefs but has different goals with them.
I think her name is Riley, and she plays.
Oh, her name is Riley. She plays Capable. Good name. That is more of a Mad Max name to me.
Yeah.
Capable. What is Zoe Kravitz's name?
Toast.
Toast. Yeah. I was like, her name is something ridiculous. Zoe Kravitz is Toast. No strokes because she does not catch fire.
So Toast, Cheeto, Capable, the Dag, the Splendid, Incredible.
Beautiful. And that's what we get for trusting Google AI.
Mm-hmm. I mean, Riley was kind of correct.
Yeah, it was in the right way. So shout out to, oh God, last names. Riley Kyo for giving an incredible performance as Capable and making Nux's transition believable.
Can you imagine, like, being a wife and, like, one is Splendid and you're Cheeto?
Oh, yeah. Thanks.
Very, very similar. Very same energy as, like, Mufasa, the king, and Scar.
Yeah.
Okay, so which one was Cheeto?
The girl with the dark hair.
Yeah, the Cheeto is the one that tries to run back to Amorin.
Mm-hmm.
I was about to say, like, sounds Cheeto, Cheetah.
Yeah.
She's really fast.
She tried her damnedest to run away.
Her full name is Cheeto the Fragile.
Well, that's just...
Oof.
Damn. I'd rather be Toast.
Right?
I think, going back to the editing, because I think that really is what this movie kind of comes down to. If the editing doesn't work, the movie doesn't work. And I think it's interesting, the like edits you see on YouTube, where if you put a circle in center frame, it still makes sense. Everything is very middle of the frame, centered perfectly. Your eyes can follow it all. So when they have really quick, frantic edits, you can still follow what all is going on, even when they're removing frames to add to the chaos of it all.
Something I was completely blown away by consistently is the scenery. The use of the desert is incredible, especially as the storm builds, like behind the vehicles. I remember being absolutely blown away and thinking this is what a comic book looks like.
And they fought hard to get that desert scenery. So this was kind of a crazy story to follow, and also kind of testifies to how long Fury Road was being worked on. So this was filmed in Namibia, in a desert in Namibia. It had its production in Namibia halted because of 9/11.
Oh my god.
They were going to film it back in Australia.
Did it have the same cast at that time?
No.
Okay.
So, yeah, that's kind of an interesting one on the cast. But, yeah, they moved it back to filming in Australia where the second Mad Max movie was filmed. But then finally they were able to get clearance to film it in Namibia again. Following the casting is very interesting. So Mel Gibson was originally going to be in it. The most interesting thing I saw throughout this, actually, when Mel Gibson started becoming more controversial, George Miller's first pick to play Max, and someone he actually talked to about playing Max frequently, apparently, was Heath Ledger.
Oh.
And then when Heath Ledger passed away, he was like, okay, I guess I'll take the next Batman villain, and he moved on. But yeah, Heath Ledger, I think, would have been a very inspired choice.
Wouldn't the next Batman villain be Cillian Murphy?
No, he was before Heath Ledger.
Ah. Yeah,
Tom
you're
Hardy
right.
was
Okay,
Bane.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, we know. See, we know things about movies. We're qualified to make this podcast.
Well, that means, by hierarchical law, who's next? Is it Jim Carrey? Is that, no.
No, that's the 90s. That's the wrong direction. Who? Jared Leto.
Oh, yeah, we were moving forward, not backward. I understand how time works,
Yeah.
literally.
I think Jared Leto would have to be the next one.
Oh,
I hate that.
That would be... No, I don't like that.
I'm sure we'll come across this at some point, but there's a joke in BoJack Horseman of all things where they say Jared Leto is the worst part of everything he's in. He's in some great movies, but he is consistently the worst part.
Have you seen the video for 30 Seconds to Mars?
Oh, yeah.
I loved that. I thought that was so dope.
What do you mean 30 seconds by that's the
The
band?
so,
the
yeah,
song.
there's the song "Bury Me," I think it's called. I forget.
No, that's The Kill.
Oh, The Kill.
I don't know. But
Yeah. Okay.
Jared Leto is
Sorry,
the
I
lead.
didn't realize that you.
The real facts. Yeah, Jared Leto is the lead singer of 30 Seconds to Mars.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, he was mocking my lack of knowledge about
Okay.
the band. Have you seen the music video to The Kill?
I think I have. It's been a while.
It's incredible. It's pretty much a scene for scene recreation of The Shining, but with the band members. 10 out of 10.
As someone who is like the head, and we will come across The Shining, that could be some additional footage we watch down the road for our
We have
eventual
to watch the movie,
Shining.
both movies
episode.
for our bracket, but also the music video to The Kill from 30 Seconds to Mars.
Incredible.
I bet Jared Leto's the worst part of that movie, though, too, or that video.
Almost definitely.
There it is.
So yeah, with that, I guess let's talk about Indiana Jones.
Let's talk about Indiana Jones.
So this is the higher seed, seeded 43. Again, pulled this from IMDb's top 250, where it was ranked 59. So, what's your experience with Indiana Jones?
So the first Indiana Jones movie I ever watched was when Kingdom of the Crystal Skull came out in theaters. And me and my brother went because we really just liked watching movies. And no previous knowledge, which is incredible looking back. But we were both like, that was really, really cool. And my grandma was like, well, if you thought that was cool, then you'd really like these movies. And then for Christmas, like some odd months later, she got us both box sets of all the old Indiana Jones movies. So we marathoned them, and I was like, yeah, that's incredible. This is going to have an effect on the rest of my life, I think.
Yeah. Alf, what's your experience with Indiana Jones?
I remember watching bits and pieces of it as a kid. Not really memorable stuff, but my first actual sit down for Indiana Jones was the Crystal Skull in theaters, and I hated it. Like, the whole entire time I was like, okay, yeah, this makes sense. Shia LaBeouf, cool. Then at the very end, aliens. What? Like, the only scene that I really liked was, like, the giant anthill, and that was it. That was cool and terrifying, but I think
There
that was
was
cool.
some unrealistic progression, I think.
Yeah, I think I saw Kingdom of the Crystal Skull in theaters. I was very young, so I don't fully remember it. I've always known Indiana Jones. I remember, for as long as I can remember, I've had Indiana Jones in my library of movies I've watched. So,
Peter, how did you come across Indiana Jones for the first time?
I think at my grandma's television, cable TV, because we didn't have TV at my house. But grandma's, I'd see bits and snippets of things.
Right.
Remember Too Much to Drink, Dr. Jones, Temple of Doom.
Yeah.
We don't come for food or drink. That was the Nazi in the first one. But John Williams, the composer. I just remember his stuff, and that's a lot of Steven Spielberg movies for me, is John Williams. John Williams first and everything else second. I have not seen Crystal Skull, although Shia LaBeouf is like an action hero compared to Harrison Ford. I'm sorry. I think Harrison Ford is just he's better looking. Harrison Ford's an action hero I can get behind. Wasn't he George Lucas's carpenter? Isn't that how he got to stardom?
Yeah, for Star Wars.
Yeah, for Star
He
Wars.
was reading for Han Solo, and then George Lucas was like, might as well.
Might as well.
I think he's the most reluctant actor I've ever... He's just, like, famous against his will at all times.
Yeah.
At least that's how he seems to me.
I agree. But man, no, I need to revisit those movies. It's sad that I remember Temple of Doom the most.
That is sad for you. That's literally the worst one.
and Harrison Ford was also in American Graffiti that was directed by George Lucas before Star Wars. That's why he was reading for Han Solo as well. So they go way back.
That does not negate the fact that he just seems like the most reluctant, famous person.
Which is incredible because Harrison Ford... This is kind of an interesting thing where Harrison Ford might have the best run of movies, like back to back to back from the 70s to 80s. I mean, you do Star Wars, Indiana Jones, Blade Runner, The Fugitive. What else did he have in the 80s? Witness. He was Jack Ryan somewhere in there, early 90s. Air Force One, later 90s. Like, what an incredible go of just action.
Hit after hit.
Yeah. I don't know if anyone's quite had a run like that as far as that.
What Lies
goes.
Beneath?
Oh, that was
Yeah.
incredible.
Machian,
Yeah.
Villain with Michelle Pfeiffer. That was...
Michelle Pfeiffer remains perfection in my brain.
Oh, yeah.
Just forever, I think.
It's because Michelle Pfeiffer is just perfection. But yeah, this was definitely an interesting one. I think we had a lot of talk about whether or not to go with this one or a different Indiana Jones movies, but ultimately because we were trying to let the internet decide this movie bracket. Mm-hmm. A lot of the times we went with Raiders of the Lost Ark. So if you are sad that this is the Indiana Jones we're going for, you can go fight IMDb, and I will back you up.
Write us real mail, like snail mail us a letter defending your choice for the Indiana
Yeah.
Jones movie, and then we'll reconsider.
And definitely leave lots of comments about it, because I've heard that's how the algorithm works.
Yeah. Tell us how you feel, comment after comment.
Just reiterate your comment over and over and over again. You really get the comment numbers up amongst our potential 5 viewers.
I'm sure my dad will listen. Hi,
Yeah.
Dad.
So yeah, find these two interesting movies to start with as well. The opening scene, I think, is one of the more iconic things about Raiders of the Lost Ark, where he goes into the temple and the boulder comes after him. And I love that scene has absolutely nothing to do with the rest of the movie. All it does is introduce Indy and Belloc. That's all that scene functions as. And it's one of the more memorable scenes of the movie, which I think is incredible.
Well, in case you forgot, Indiana Jones is a hero, so he has to do heroic things.
No. He is by far not a hero.
That is not how he is portrayed.
Have notes here.
Oh no, Jaden has notes.
I took stock of this. Indiana Jones is the villain.
100%. He's literally just grave robbing.
The only reason he is portrayed as a hero is because he's fighting Nazis. If he were fighting literally anyone else, he would be the villain. Except Nazis are the worst of the worst.
He fights natives quite often.
Okay. He does fight
that are like
Indians.
defending their shit, and he's just like, no, this belongs in a museum, and they're like, that's ours.
Yeah. So I think that was one of my points. So yeah, these are my bullet points of why Indy is evil, just not as evil as Nazis. See, the first shot actually, I think, frames him the way he comes out of the shadows. That's a villain shot. I think Steven Spielberg knew. His only real effect on the plot throughout this entire first movie is that he helps the Nazis find the Ark faster, which is not intentional, but it is a fact. His main character goal throughout all his movies is to steal other countries' artifacts and put them in American museums. Belloc says to Indy, with only a nudge to make you like me, to push you out of the light, is all it would take to make Indy like Belloc. And Belloc's only difference from Indy, I'll stand by, is that he works with Nazis. He goes out of his way to let the Nazis keep Marion captive so that he can get away with furthering his own personal goals throughout this story. And finally, when they open the Ark of the Covenant, Indy closes his eyes because he is scared of the wrath of God, because he knows he is a villain.
Oh, I mean, yes, not to dismantle what you're saying, but like, you're not supposed to look anyway, like, at all.
That's fair.
No one is. No one's safe from the light of God.
No one is?
Isn't Indiana Jones also just bad at his job in general?
He's technically a professor of anthropology. Like, that's his job. He's teaching.
He's a bad
and
professor.
Also, setting buildings on fire and causing them to collapse and stealing artifacts and killing natives and everything that they did archaeology-wise, in the 40s. Anyway.
But that is another thing that I hope eventually got brought up. But first, I just want to point out, I don't have any memory of Indiana Jones actually having an artifact to himself completely. It's always taken away in some fashion, either by someone else or the government. Like, he doesn't...
Yeah.
Well, there's that warehouse of all this
It's Area 51.
Yeah. I have a question.
right.
Who's a better archaeologist, Laura Croft or Indiana Jones?
Ben Lara Croft.
Laura Croft.
You
I
answered
also
that way more simply.
I've never seen a Lara Croft movie.
Have you played the video games?
No.
Have you watched the plethora of they have about her on the internet?
have
No.
you seen Angelina Jolie?
Exactly.
I haven't seen Angelina Jolie in a movie or two, I think.
There's a reason that none of the Tomb Raider movies are on this list.
It's not because of
They're
Angelina
fun.
Jolie. I will also say I think Indiana Jones is a bad professor because can you imagine taking his course and just like overnight suddenly like this is your substitute teacher for the rest of this year.
Oh yeah,
I'm
he
gonna
for
go-
sure has tenure.
Yeah, he definitely has tenure and he's just like sorry guys, I'm done teaching. There's cool stuff happening over in the Middle East. I'm gonna go check it out.
We've had you in class twice this semester.
Like, is the university paying him to go out there, or is it the government?
Yes. No, the government. It's definitely the government. The government agents are the ones that come talk to him. I do think it's also funny in the fourth one. I rewatched all the movies for this podcast. In the fourth one, he does get fired from the university because he's being accused of being a communist.
If I was a communist, would I steal from natives?
So it's not the long period of absences that does it. It's you're a communist.
Yeah. You can not be in class all you want, but as soon as you're a communist.
Yeah, like I assume tuition is affordable, but like if you're,
It's like $6 a year. It's very steep at the time.
but like if you're, I assume he's a well-known name in this storytelling. So like if you purposely take a class to learn from the Indiana Jones, but he f***s off like every other day for months on end, what's the point?
Yeah. It's also he must be getting paid hourly or something because he still works till he's 80. Because he's 80 in the
And he has
the
a
fifth
really
one.
nice house.
He does. He's 80 in the most recent one, and he's still a professor. He's still teaching kids in that one.
He's like trying to use technology. Oh no.
Yeah, because it takes place in the like 60s, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's the worst one. I was astonished.
I actually haven't seen the newest one.
I had high hopes because I like James Mangold a lot, but man, that was hard to sit through. I like, you know how you were saying at the aliens at the end, it's like what just happened here. I don't know if you've seen the most recent one, but at the end it's time travel here. What just happened here? He goes back and meets Archimedes.
What?
Does he speak English? Does Archimedes speak English?
No. Indiana Jones speaks Old Greek.
Okay, that
That makes sense. Yeah, he goes back to ancient Greece. He meets Archimedes, and he tells his new sidekick because they want to bring Shia LaBeouf back. I can't even remember her name because it doesn't
That's
matter.
because Shia LaBeouf's controversial now.
Yeah, I can't remember her name because it doesn't matter. He tells her, "I want to die here. Leave me here to die," and she punches him in the face and takes him back to modern time.
So did Indiana Jones know Old Greek beforehand, or does he just know he was going to get into a time travel situation? And
He's
just
like,
learn
well,
Old
I'm going to
Greek?
talk to Archimedes. Better brush up
I think he had that in his back pocket in case he ever got to talk to Archimedes.
I mean, he did meet aliens, so like, who knew what was going to happen?
I think it's an interesting thing about Indiana Jones, the fact that he is perpetually like, magic, that's not real. But like, dude,
Didn't you see the light of God?
you've seen the light of God, you saw a cup heal a bullet wound from your dad, and you saw an Indian dude rip your heart out. So like...
Wasn't he also possessed by a
Yeah.
demon at one point?
And he just is like, nah, science.
I appreciate the standard, I guess.
I appreciate that at least old Han Solo was like, yeah, the Force is real. I'll cop to it. I'll take the hit on that one.
Yeah, that's my bad team.
Let's see, what else? What else? I think my favorite scene in Indiana Jones as an action movie is either the one that stuck with me the most as a kid was probably the fight where the guy gets chewed up by the propeller at the end, or the road chase scene where he's jumping from car to car and he slides under the car and grabs it with his whip and pulls himself up.
Oh, absolutely.
All those practical stunts are incredible.
I'm more partial to the airplane fight scene because you see this shirtless, tall, buff German guy come out, sees Indiana Jones struggling against the pilot, and he thinks, yeah, I'm going to fight this guy. Instead of doing his job and learning the rest of the army, he's like, no, I want to himbo this real quick.
I can handle this. And he does for a long time. I mean, I don't think Indiana Jones ever has the upper hand in that fight until he decides to duck and let him get chewed up by the propeller.
I do like that he seems to get his ass kicked.
Yeah.
Quite often. That is refreshing.
Indiana Jones gets his whomped on regularly. He's just constantly getting beat up. And I think you feel a lot of those hits.
Yeah. You're like, this man... Sir.
I know it's back then it wasn't more of like a standard to be ripped or looking jacked, but technically speaking, Indiana Jones should be shredded even a little bit with all the running and terrain he's going through.
Right, but
he's just a professor.
Yeah, like is he exercising in his free time, or is he trying to like make up some of the classwork that he's missed?
You think his university provides him a free rec center membership, or does that come out of his hourly pay?
Have you seen rec center, like flashbacks of rec centers from like the 40s or like before?
It's not a pretty sight.
Just like men in old timey swimsuits for some reason, and like boxing with one hand in front of the other.
Yeah, but you would also think that the amount of times Indiana Jones just like one hits someone and knocks him out cold. He would be a little more ripped. He does that till he's 80. He cold clocks someone in the Dial of Destiny.
Yeah, but didn't you just say that a girl hits him in the face and knocks him out and like
he's
drags
80.
him? Okay.
I mean, to be fair, a good punch to the jaw that would knock anybody out if you do it the right way.
I mean, fair. I was just like add her to the list of people beating the shit out of him.
Well, maybe she's magic.
I do think
I didn't see it, so I don't know. She very well could be. He wouldn't believe, though.
She's normal. I do think it is interesting that Indiana Jones looks normal, though, because I think the 80s were a big time where you have, like, Arnold Schwarzenegger and Stallone. Those guys just ripped to all hell, tearing stuff up. And then you have Indiana Jones and John McClane from Die Hard. Just normal-ass dudes out here doing their best. Getting beat up by Germans.
Yeah.
Because they are the enemy. Sorry if we somehow get any German viewers that decide to backlog all the way here. My beer is cold. I apologize. Yeah. I do think interesting comparing Indiana Jones to Mad Max, because Mad Max takes a lot of hits, and I don't think I ever at any point was like, oh, that had to have hurt. I love the moment in Mad Max where he bounces off the desert, and then a little bit later he just like gets up and he's like, that was weird. Goes on his merry way.
The action is incredible, but the injury is not as believable as Indiana Jones.
No.
Like, he looks like he got hit. And, like, a girl got ran over, and, I mean, she died, but there was nothing wrong with her.
It's a little bit out of place. I do think that was something that, going a little bit outside the scope. I might pull it in the scope a little bit later. I think Furiosa fixes that a little bit. Furiosa feels like she gets the crap beat out of her in the prequel movie. But I think Mad Max is just immortal and indestructible, and that's fine.
Yeah. We don't know how old he is. Timelines haven't been established.
Yeah, George Miller cares very little about canon amongst Mad Max movies.
Honestly, neither do I.
No.
It's fine. Just...
Yeah, I guess with that, I think we got a little bit of where this is going already, but what are you guys thinking is moving on from this round?
Mad Max Fury Road.
Mad Max.
Yeah. I would have to agree. Mad Max. Peter?
Not too qualified, but I gotta say Mad Max.
Yeah. Sorry, Indiana Jones. You stood no
It's just
chance.
way more memorable. It's indelible. Mad Max is indelible. That's
It's also-
this specific Mad Max.
Yeah.
I think
It's a better made movie. It's better acted. The script's better.
Yeah.
Like, it's just a better movie.
I think in a lot of ways, Indiana Jones is Steven Spielberg still figuring a lot of stuff out. And Steven Spielberg hit the ground running really hard. No one's denying that. But Mad Max Fury Road is very much George Miller has taken the time in his career to learn the craft so thoroughly and just deliver an incredible, incredible action movie.
And Babe.
Yeah, and Babe 2. Only Babe 2.
Sorry.
Yeah, he directed Babe 2, Pig in the City. I also love...
like all the Mad Maxes and then Babe 2, Pig in the City.
I found out that he made both Happy Feet movies while having the Fury Road script posted on the wall around his office while making Happy Feet 1 and 2, which makes Happy Feet 1 and 2 that much better. What are already incredible movies. Yeah, I think it's a little bit sad giving up Indiana Jones here, but I think it is the right call.
Indiana Jones is iconic, and its effect on pop culture is absolutely undeniable.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not as good as Mad Max. It's just
At least not Fury Road. I do think, interestingly enough, the only other real contender I ever had at any point for greatest action movie, I don't know if you guys have seen this or not, was The Raid.
Is The Raid on the list?
And it did not end up making the list, and I feel a little bit sad about that. But ultimately, after going through way too many top action movies of all time and reading a lot about it, I felt pretty comfortable giving The Raid up to Fury Road.
Okay.
I felt pretty comfortable with that. I do think it would be fun to talk about The Raid and maybe an offshoot, episode that's not necessarily a bracket.
Or we could bring in like our own personal
Yeah.
best movies or favorite movies.
Yeah, I don't think it would be bad to talk about The Raid at some point.
Mine would just be Mad Max again.
Yeah, Mad Max again. But yeah, I think it was the right call. I think Mad Max moving on is the right call. I think really what this comes down to for me is my favorite scene is that car chase scene in Indiana Jones and Raiders of the Lost Ark. And Mad Max is just that scene for 2 hours straight. Executed
Yeah.
better than that scene is.
On a grander scale. Just incredible.
Yeah. I think the
test of time, though, for practical effects.
Oh, yeah. I think these are two
Beautifully done.
incredible franchises for practical effects, too, just as a whole.
Until the island gets sucked up by the aliens.
Yeah. Well, even Shia LaBeouf swinging from vine to vine looks a little wonky. But yeah, I think it's
He's
interesting.
an actual cannibal.
Yeah. Him and Armie Hammer, man. I think it's interesting how Indiana Jones, also this kind of comes down to Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark is undeniably inspired by the first Mad Max movie in a lot of ways.
I could see that.
A lot of the practical effects and action. I think franchise versus franchise, I think Indiana Jones and Raiders of the Lost Ark would probably beat out the first Mad Max for me.
I agree.
Temple of Doom, I don't think is doing a whole lot against Road Warrior. I like
think
Temple of
Road
Doom.
Warrior is better.
I'll defend Temple of Doom more than a lot of people, but I think Road Warrior's taking that. I think Last Crusade is pretty handily beating Beyond Thunderdome. I like Beyond Thunderdome.
Yeah, I'll give that to you too.
I'll also say Last Crusade is actually probably my favorite indie movie.
The Last Crusade is mine as well.
But the internet and we can't fight the internet for very much longer. So
They're gonna show up.
they're gonna be knocking on our door any day now. That being said, I do think if it was Last Crusade and Mad Max Fury Road, Mad Max Fury Road is still taking that.
Yeah, I agree.
I think going from there, I mean, it's pretty obvious. Kingdom of Crystal Skull versus Fury Road.
Oh,
Yeah,
God.
no, not even.
And then Dial of Destiny versus Furiosa.
I liked Furiosa, and we've talked about this in a lot of detail. I don't think Furiosa was anywhere close to Fury Road.
Few things are there.
Yeah, exactly. But I haven't seen Dial of Destiny either, so I'm going to have to let you guide me on this one, because I don't know.
Yeah. Dial of Destiny's bad. I liked it even less than I liked Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. And I actually don't hate a lot of Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
I liked it. I thought it was a lot of fun.
I
was like,
the
this
first
is pretty
half.
cool.
I like the first half a lot. The second half is where the movie starts to lose me.
I think if I had seen the original 3 first, I would have a different... I would have gone into came with a Crystal Skull with a different idea of what to expect, and that would have proven bad for me, I think.
That makes sense. So yeah, Fury Road, moving on. I think now is the time to ask the real important question, what this podcast is probably looking for the most. If Fury Road, we'll go in order for this. If Fury Road was not a normal action movie, but instead a Muppet movie, what human actor are we keeping in Fury Road?
Nux.
Yeah, Nux. Okay, easy enough. I agree. I think Nux is the human character.
I'm weirdly good at this game.
I think we were talking about this a little bit before. I think I like Gonzo as Max, because he just kind of shows up from space. He doesn't really know what's going on, but he's down to party.
I think it's got to be Miss Piggy for Furiosa, just because like every time she fights, she's just like hi-ya! And I think that would be really funny.
Oh yeah, with Miss Piggy's robot arm.
Exactly. And she's got the anger. They're both really, really mad ladies, and I love that.
And Sam the Eagle's more in jail.
100%.
And for some reason in this movie, where are we sliding Kermit in here? I feel like we can't exclude Kermit.
We'll figure out probably something small, or maybe what's the
Doof Warrior?
Oh my god.
For those that aren't well versed in Mad Max lore, the Doof Warrior is the guy with the flaming guitar. That is the coolest thing ever. I'm surprised Doof Warrior did not go. The Doof Warrior is the coolest thing coming away from either of these franchises.
Also be a really cool contender for the only human in the world. But I do think that Animal should just be all the rest of the War Boys.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely.
Just like animal after animal everywhere.
Like a bunch of animal clones.
Mm-hmm.
What if Kermit was the big brother?
Rictus?
Yeah.
I could see Kermit as Rictus doing Sam the Eagles. I'd love to watch Kermit just rip that engine. Sitting on one human character to Valhalla. I could get behind that.
And, was the dude from Bullet Town like the one keeping track and everything?
Oh,
I forget. The fat guy who had his nipple out for some reason with a chain.
Oh yeah,
that could be the
little
count.
monocle.
Do we think that's confirmed, inspired by Chris Hemsworth Dementis? So in Furiosa, Chris Hemsworth's Dementis, there's a scene where he has a device hooked up to his nipples that it's pierced them, and it ultimately ends up ripping his nipples off. And I think that the bullet farmer, whose name is his name is not cast highly enough. My goodness, No, that's the bullet farmer. The Gastown guy. The People Eater. John Howard plays the People Eater. That's
John
right.
Howard? That's so weird.
Did know that his name was the People Eater. They do call him the People Eater. The People Eater was inspired by watching Dementis, Chris Hemsworth as Dementis, getting his nipples ripped out. It's like, I'm going to pierce my nipples. That was awesome.
I'm going to have my nip out all the time. And good for him.
Absolutely. Anyway, who are you saying the People Eater could be?
Oh, the count. Says he's keeping track of
yeah. Okay. Who are we putting as the bullet farmer then?
Wait, the Count?
Yeah.
The Count is from Sesame Street.
Oh no! Okay. We're calling it. We gotta sort out our Muppets versus Sesame Street.
That's right. I forgot there was a huge divide with that.
They're all velvet. They look the same to me.
Look, man, you're gonna come in here with Fraggle Rock one day, and we're all gonna be upset.
I don't know who that is.
Okay, well, come back next week when
I got some things to show you.
When Af will have watched all of Fraggle Rock, and the rest of us will have watched. Next week we are looking at Midnight Cowboy vs. Goodfellas. So come back next week for that, and Af's in-depth analysis of Fraggle Rock. However many seasons that went on. Thanks for listening in.
Bye.